"Don't worry, I won't kill you quickly," Poof said with a smug face. He was ready to torture Morel and kill him slowly. However, at this moment, a figure quickly rushed from behind. As fast as a bolt of lightning, no one could discern the identity of this figure. Poof's face changed as he sensed the threat behind him. This figure belonged to none other than Killua. Killua was in his Godspeed state, and Poof couldn't respond to that kind of speed. Lightning palm. The blue current passed from Killua's palms into Poof's body. This technique is essentially changing Nen to an electric current and focusing that current into the palm, stunning whoever was hit directly. Poof was strong, which is why he was only paralyzed for 0.5 seconds. But that was enough for the second figure to approach Poof. The second person was gone, and Poof could only stare at the former's glowing fist coming closer. "Damn it! I can't move my body." Poof for the first time looked horrified. He could feel Gon's fist containing an astounding amount of energy. Receiving that hit would be disastrous. In the next second, Gon's fist slammed into Poof. Since Gon was an enhancer, his physical body was strong, and his Nen enhanced that greatly, adding to that the effect of his Jajangkan. It would be quite the punch. The only disadvantage of the Jajangkan is the charging time and the lack of defense when it's deployed. And since Killua successfully paralyzed Poof temporarily, Gon got the opportunity to attack without risk. Poof was sent flying in an instant. "Great," Killua said in delight. The cooperation between him and Gon went perfectly. When Poof was focusing on Morel, he was hiding not far away and observing the battlefield. He immediately seized the opportunity to launch a quick attack when Poof wasn't paying attention and paralyzed him, creating a chance for Gon to attack. The entire surprise attack took a few seconds. Poof flew tens of meters away before he stopped. At the same time, Gon's Nen seemed to diminish by half at least. He was kneeling on the floor with a tired expression. Killua saw this and stepped beside him and asked, "Gon, are you okay?" Gon said weakly, "That punch I threw took almost 90% of my Nen. I'm very tired and I may need a while to recover. Sorry to trouble you, Killua." "It's okay, Gon, you've done a great job," Killua said, "leave the rest to me." Poof took a while to get up from the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his entire face was pale. The Nen in his body decreased a lot from where it was before. "Damn that kid, he actually has such a terrifying attack." Poof's face was pale. It was the first time he suffered such a severe injury. A feeling of shame overwhelmed him. He was ashamed and angry at being injured by a mere human. "Damn it! I will kill that kid." Poof raised his head and looked at Gon. His killing intent flowed like crazy, but Gon didn't even flinch at that. Killua said to Morel, "Morel-san, you protect Gon, and I will deal with this guy." "Okay, no problem." Morel pulled back his pipe and then made a smoke ring to protect himself and Gon. Morel can guarantee that Poof won't be able to get in for a while. During that time, Gon can rest and leave Poof to Killua. Poof snorted coldly when he saw the smoke ring appearing to protect Gon. He didn't lose his mind in anger but was extremely calm instead. After getting hit by Gon, Poof knew that his injuries would affect his performance, so he didn't rush to attack and chose other offensive methods. Poof spread his butterfly wings and quickly flew up 100 meters in the air. "What is that guy doing?" Killua frowned. Poof flew in the night sky and activated his scale powder and released a large amount of it. The scale powder can't be seen by the naked eye, and if a human breathes it in, he will be hypnotized. But its main effect is showing someone's aura flow, allowing Poof to analyze the blend of 30 emotional patterns and through them, formulate a conjecture about the opponent's psychological state, personality, and thoughts. At this time, Poof could read Killua's emotions, which currently stood 50% vigilance and 50% confidence. Killua was confident in his ability. Through this, Poof knew that Killua wasn't a simple guy. Coupled with the previous attack, Poof guessed that Killua could turn his Nen into an electric current and attack with it as well as enhance his speed. Inside the smoke ring, Morel warned Killua, "Killua, don't inhale the scale powder." Killua nodded in understanding, but there was too much of that powder and Killua accidentally inhaled some. Soon, he started feeling dizzy. Killua knew that he was poisoned. "Oops, this powder has some hypnotic effect." Killua's expression changed as he quickly moved away from the area covered in the scale powder. Midair, Poof noticed that Killua inhaled some scale powder and the hypnotism started taking effect and directly launched an attack. Seeing Poof rushing toward him, Killua could only activate his gut speed and move away. Poof chased after him, vowing to kill him. Killua didn't choose to have a head-on fight with Poof. He was a Zoldyck, a family of assassins, and with his childhood training, his body can adapt to any kind of poison. As long as he can manage for a few minutes, his body will adapt to the scale powder. Therefore, he could only escape till it happens. On another battlefield, Knuckle and Shoe teamed up against Noro. Noro was a royal guard, which means he is very strong. And unlike Poof who prefers not to engage in combat, Noro was mainly a combat chimera and his giant claws held great offense and defense along with his physical strength. As long as he lands a hit with those claws, his opponent will die or at least be severely injured. His Nen was multiple times stronger than both Knuckle and Shoot combined. In a head-on fight, Knuckle and Shoot can't stand a chance against Noro. Therefore, they could only start fighting Noro while putting a safe distance between them. "Damn it, that giant is very troublesome." Knuckle frowned. Shoot said in a deep voice, "I will find a way to create an opportunity and you use your Hikoware on him." "Okay, I understand." Knuckle nodded. Knuckle's Nen ability was unique. He summons a mascot called Amortizing Power Redirector and attaches it to his opponent. With each blow from Knuckle, he would lend his aura to whoever has Amortizing Power Redirector, and each time his opponent hits Knuckle that aura is sent back. Every 10 seconds, the aura will increase 10% as interest. The attacks from both Knuckle and his opponent won't cause any damage, only lending or returning Nen. When the opponent's Nen is below what Knuckles lent, it will cause bankruptcy. Bankruptcy would cause the Amortizing Power Redirector to change into an individual Ren suppressor, causing the opponent to be in a continuous state of Zetsu for 30 days. And can only be removed by an exorcist or when Knuckle is rendered unconscious. Once Noro can't use Nen, Knuckle was confident that he can deal with his head-on. However, the current situation was very far from being able to even land a hit on Noro. Noro's claws could only attack at a distance of 5 meters, and even if he expanded them to the maximum length, it would only reach 10 meters. So, Knuckle and Shoot can't be hit if they kept their distance, but they can't attack him as well. So unless they close the distance, neither Noro nor Knuckle and Shoot could attack. To attach his Amortizing Power Redirector on Noro, Knuckle needed to land a hit, but unfortunately, it wasn't that easy, since Noro was a royal guard, a monster amidst monsters. With his own power, it would be almost impossible, that's why he needed his partner's help. His partner was Shoot, a fellow disciple under Morel's teaching. The two were partners for years and had great teamwork. Even if they were facing a monster, if they set their mindset right, they could fight Noro. Shoot was a manipulator, and he uses a technique called disembodied hands, which is represented by 3 hands that Shoot can control freely. Shoot's main Nen ability is Hotel Rafflesia, which allows him to shrink any body part touched with his disembodied hands and seal it into a bird cage. Even though somebody's parts can be sealed, there is no actual damage to the target when he is missing one. For example, if he hit his target's eyes, he can seal his eyes and seal them, rendering his opponent blind, but it isn't permanent, because as soon as the Hotel Rafflesia is released, the eyes would return to their owner. For now, Knuckle could only rely on Noro to give him an advantage to land a strike. Shoot and Knuckle kept retreating while Noro followed after them trying to kill them. "We don't have an advantage in an open space, we need to lead him to the forest," Knuckle said. "Yeah," Shoot agreed. Directly, both of them headed to the forest near the palace. After entering the forest, Knuckle and Shoot started guerrilla warfare against Noro. Although Noro was strong, he was helpless in this situation. Many trees were destroyed by Noro, but to no avail, as he couldn't hit his targets. Finally, after some time, one of Shoot's hands finally landed on Noro's right eye. Suddenly, the eye disappeared from Noro's head and appeared in a cage due to hotel rafflesia. Since Noro lost an eye, he had a blind spot due to the missing chunk in vision, which made it easier for Knuckle to land a hit. The punch was strong, but what puzzled Noro is the fact that he didn't feel any pain. Instead, he felt like he was given an instead. Huh? While wondering what's going on, Noro's single eye noticed something strange flying next to him. It was a fat doll. What's this? Noro frowned and noticed the number 500 appearing on the doll's forehead. It's time, counting added interest. The doll beside Noro smiled as it said. Noro noticed that the number displayed on the forehead of the doll increased from 500 to 550. Good, Pot Clean started calculating the interest. Not far away, Knuckle said in joy. Since the amortizing power redirector was attached, it was only a matter of time before Noro would enter bankruptcy. The fat doll floating beside Noro was called Pot Clean, a type of Nen manifestation that calculates the Nen interest to whomever it was attached to. When Knuckle is 50 meters away from Noro, Pot Clean would add 10% interest every 10 seconds. And when the distance between them is more than 50 meters, Pot Clean won't calculate and temporarily stop the interest. Additionally, Pot Clean won't just calculate the interest from the base value, but instead, the interest will be calculated by the last displayed value. When the aura balance is turned toward Knuckle, then Noro would go into bankruptcy and Pot Clean will become Tartatan, a debt collector that follows the debtor for 30 days, forcing him into a state of Zetsu. Before the debt is paid back to Knuckle, Noro's attack won't cause any damage. Instead, they would give Knuckle Nen. Once the debt is paid, Pot Clean would disappear. Damn thing, get out of here. Noro, who was originally angry at the loss of his eye, was even more upset when he saw the fat doll floating beside his head. He tried hitting it but it didn't work. Pot Clean won't be lifted unless Knuckle is unconscious or a strong exorcist lifted it, and even then, it would take too much out of him. It's useless, no matter how much you attack, it won't go away. Not far away, Knuckle explained. Noro snorted and immediately, his target changed as he moved straight toward Knuckle. Since he can't get rid of the doll, he believed that as long as the one who used it is dead, it would disappear. Knuckle ran away instead of facing Noro. Knuckle knew that Noro is strong, and if he was hit this early since Pot Clean was attached to him, the debt will be paid with just one hit. Therefore, Knuckle ran away desperately. A lot of trees were destroyed around them. Knuckle was scurrying around the woods without a single thought to retaliate. Noro behind him was doing his best to land a hit, but Knuckle was just faster and more flexible. And although Knuckle was strong in close combat, facing a monster like Noro was disadvantageous. Since Noro was hit by amortizing power redirector, there was no need for a frontal confrontation. Knuckle was confident that he can escape, which made it difficult for Noro to land a hit. In the next second, Noro changed his form from giant claws to normal-sized claws. Although the destructive power is reduced in this form, he was faster and more agile. In a flash, Noro appeared in front of Knuckle. Fast. Knuckle was taken aback. Unexpectedly, his opponent's speed increased so much as he reduced the size of his claws. I can't escape. Knuckle showed a terrified expression. Knuckle felt a huge force coming toward him, and suddenly he flew back and hit several trees before he stopped. Afterward, Pot Clean disappeared from behind Noro. This meant that Noro paid all the Nen back. Although he didn't take damage, Pot Clean disappeared, and if he was to be hit again, he might die. Noro took advantage of the situation and stuck Knuckle, sending him flying again. Knuckle spat blood as he hit the ground. Although he used Ken for defense, Noro's power was just too much for him. Noro wanted to quickly attack once again and end Knuckles. While Noro's claw was heading toward Knuckle to finish him off, Shoot arrived at the last moment and saved him. Shoot controlled his three hands and attacked Noro, who evaded two of them, but the last one managed to hit his left claw. Noro's claws were hit best attack and defense, and since Shoot managed to hit one of them, he can seal them in his hotel rafflesia. Losing a claw was like losing a weapon to Noro, and it would definitively affect his combat power. This irritated him greatly, and coupled with his right eye, he was sending killing intent in waves at Shoot. He ignored the critically injured Knuckle and headed toward Shoot, attacking with his right claw. Shoot tried his best to move away and dodge Noro's attacks. While dodging, he was also looking for opportunities to attack. Although Noro's left claw and right eye were missing, he wasn't weak and shouldn't be underestimated. Especially now that he is enraged. Shoot was doing his best, dodging and attacking at the same time. Noro dodged the hands, but at the last second, one of them touched his left eye. Suddenly everything turned black as both eyes were sealed inside Shoot's hotel rafflesia. But while sealing that eye, Shoot was hit and was sent flying, and spat a large mouthful of blood. Noro didn't take advantage of the situation this time, because unlike before, he couldn't see anymore. To some extent, he was blind. If he can't deal with the hotel rafflesia ability, then he will remain blind forever, and the easiest way to get rid of this ability is killing Shoot. However, since he is currently blind, he won't be able to find Shoot and could only detect Nen. Not far away, both Shoot and Knuckle were lying on the ground, seriously injured, and their mobility was greatly reduced. Noro approached them, and both tried to stand up and continue fighting, but it was very difficult to even stand up now. If they don't get treated quickly, they might even die because of blood loss from the claw's wounds. You guys will die now. Noro relied on Nen detection, the circle known as N, to find Knuckle and Shoot, and launched his attack. At this moment, a strong slash hit Noro. Who's there? Both Knuckle and Shoot were taken aback. Then, they saw a figure slowly coming over with a huge scythe. This person was Kite, and that slash came from Kite's scythe. Seeing Kite, both Knuckle and Shoot sighed in relief. "Sorry, I'm late," Kite said. "No, you came just in time," Shoot replied. "Yeah, if you didn't come, we might have died just now," Knuckle said. Shoot then said, "That monster's eyes and one of his claws are sealed in hotel rafflesia, so his fighting power is greatly reduced. You should be able to defeat him." "It's up to you now, Kite," Knuckle said. "Well, leave it to me." Kite didn't say anything else and just nodded. Although Noro temporarily lost his eyes, he was still a strong opponent. Immediately after, Kite and Noro started their fight. The two clashed head-on before jumping back, pushing down the surrounding trees from the collision. Kite held his scythe, not afraid of Noro's claw. Normally, Kite wouldn't be strong enough to fight Noro. But now, Knuckle and Shoot weakened him enough, while Kite was still in optimum condition. Silent Waltz. After a fierce battle for a few minutes, Kite used his best attack. An astonishing slash split Noro in two, killing him. Although he successfully killed Noro, Kite was temporarily unable to go and assist Killua as he used almost all of his power in this fight. On the other side of the battlefield, Killua was in his Godspeed mode, battling against Poof. Killua was fast enough to fight Poof, but he wasn't strong enough to kill him. Poof was slightly slower than Killua, and his attacks weren't enough to kill the latter. His only advantages were his physical body and Nen. So, even after a while, Poof wasn't able to kill Killua. Inside a deep pit near the palace, a black charred body rested. The owner of this body was Caesar, the royal guard of the Ant King. In the previous fight, he was killed by Allan using the rumble fruit. As for Allan, he already rejoined Netero. Netero was amazed that not only did Allan destroy the palace, but he also killed one of the guards in such a short time. Because even for him, he would take some time and effort to do it. However, Allan easily killed a royal guard without taking any damage while doing so. This made Netero feel fortunate that Allan was here with them, or the consequences would have been unpredictable. The two took the initiative to move toward the Ant King, and the latter was already eyeing them. No, to be precise, the Ant King was only looking at Allan. As for Netero, although he seemed strong, only Allan gave the king an urge to fight. "You destroyed our palace and killed our guard. You're strong and courageous, we really want to fight you." The Ant King looked directly at Allan and said seriously. Allan shrugged and said, "Okay, but I'm slightly tired now. If you want to fight me, you might as well let me rest for a bit so I can fight with all of my power. In that case, you can have more fun." "Yes, I will let you rest for half an hour," Meruem said. "Then, during that time, let the person beside me play with you. He has the highest status in our organization. His name is Isaac Netero, and he is recognized by all humans to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest alive." Allan pointed at Netero as he introduced him. The Ant King looked at Netero and said, "No, he isn't strong enough, he isn't our opponent." He could see the difference at a glance. As expected of the Ant King, Allan looked at Netero, who was looking at the Ant King. "Oh, he is arrogant all right." Netero smiled while holding his goatee, not angry because the Ant King looked down on him. After taking a closer look at the Ant King, Netero knew that this Chimera Ant is the strongest opponent he may have ever faced in his life. In other words, the Ant King wasn't being arrogant, but simply stating the truth. However, if it was 50 years ago, he may have a chance at fighting the current king, but not now. Netero smiled. In his old age, his strength grew weaker, he wasn't as strong as before. And his mentality changed as well. Originally, he was full of fighting spirit for this battle, he had great confidence that he could defeat the Ant King. But now, he knew that the Ant King's power exceeded his expectations. His self-confidence wasn't there anymore. He just wanted to test himself against such a strong foe right now. "All right, I will play with you." Seeing the look in Netero's eyes and the nen he radiated, Meruem finally agreed to fight Netero. "Let's fight somewhere else." "Okay." The Ant King agreed. "Then let me lead the way." Afterward, Allan manifested a dragon. The three of them flew toward the mountain more than 10 kilometers away. Below, Poof, who was fighting Killua, saw this and shouted, "King!" But his voice wasn't strong enough to reach thousands of meters. Meruem didn't notice Poof. Poof watched the king go away and finally decided to leave Killua and head to his king's side. Seeing this, Killua caught up with Poof and prevented him from leaving. On the other side, after a few minutes of flying, Allan and the others landed in a valley dozens of kilometers away. The valley was large and suitable for combat. "Here is fine," the Ant King said. Netero also had the same thought, as the place seemed suitable, and said, "Ant King, this will be your burial place." The Ant King responded coldly, "I will return that sentence to you, human." The match was about to start, and Allan found a rock some distance away and sat down to recover and watch the fight. Facing the Ant King, Netero didn't dare take it easy from the start and directly used his nen ability, the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva. The 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva is Netero's nen ability that he trained deep in the mountains in his early years. When he activates it, a huge bodhisattva appears behind him that will send punches and palm strikes at his opponent. It wasn't just palm strikes or punches, but there are various hand shapes and every single one of them can do a lot of damage. Most people in the world won't survive seeing the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva, but the Ant King wasn't just anyone. He was a monster amongst monsters, and even if he was hit by one of the attacks from the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva, he won't suffer much damage. A sideway palm strike swept the Ant King, who stood his ground, but the floor under him cracked and fell, forming a pit. Without the ground to support himself, the Ant King was launched far away and hit a mountain. The mountain crumbled, but the Ant King flew out without much damage. That didn't break his defense? Upon seeing this, Netero attacked with 2 hands, as he wanted to squash the Ant King. The Ant King felt a strong pressure from the golden palms as if 2 mountains were dropped at him from each side. After a few seconds, Netero released his attack, and the Ant King was still unharmed. He looked at Netero calmly as if saying, "Is that all?" Netero smiled. He controlled the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva to attack, one form after the other, and the Ant King tossed around before finally, he slapped toward the ground. Before the Ant King could stand up, 2 giant golden palms swept at him. The earth trembled as Netero reshaped it. Did it kill him? Netero narrowed his eyes. In the next second, the Ant King jumped out of the ground and stood still, without any injury. What an amazing defense! Netero uttered with great emotion. He sincerely admired the Ant King's physique. If it was a human being that was hit, he would have died without a doubt. Only a monster like the Ant King could survive without a scratch. In this case, I can only continue attacking him. Netero waved his arm and the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva behind him lifted its arms and launched them toward Miram. 4 hands attacked simultaneously from 4 directions and hit the Ant King. Finally, the Ant King was launched into the sky and only stopped after reaching 1,000 meters high. His cold expression slightly changed, not because he was injured, but as a kind of a compliment to Netero's power. The Ant King finally got slightly serious. His face didn't hold his cold expression, instead, he was completely concentrated. After falling back down, he immediately launched an attack at Netero. Netero saw the Ant King rushing at him and put his hands together. In the next second, the Ant King knocked back by the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva. Although he wasn't injured, the Ant King discovered something interesting. It seems that the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva was faster than him. This made him curious as to how Netero mastered such a tricky ability. Finally, the Ant King realized that it would take several years, even decades to reach such power. During his contemplation, the Ant King was once again sent flying by Netero's 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva. This guy. Watching the Ant King slowly walking yet again out of a fallen mountain, without a scratch, Netero was greatly surprised, as he didn't think that even after so many attacks, the Ant King won't receive a single injury. He never encountered an opponent with such strong physique before in his life. The 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva attack didn't cause any damage at all. Therefore, Netero knew stronger moves are needed. The Ant King didn't attack, he looked directly at Netero and after a moment, he said, "Your name is Netero, right? We shall remember you." Netero sneered coldly, "It seems to be my honor to be remembered by a monster like you." The Ant King seemed to be angry because Netero called him a monster, and said indifferently, "I don't know if you are the strongest of the humans, but from your performance, we admire your power." The Ant King paused, and said, "But you're still not our opponent, so step back. If you give up now, I won't attack you." "You mean, you want to let me go?" Netero asked while scratching the back of his head as if confused. The Ant King replied in a deep voice, "I originally thought that you humans were just weak creatures not distinguishable from domestic animals, not worth the effort, but that concept has changed. I know that in this world, there are a few humans that have value to keep alive. You belong to the few rare humans, and I find it a pity to kill you. If you swear allegiance to me now, after I rule the world, you can still retain your current identity, but work under me." Netero's face darkened. He looked directly at the Ant King and his killing intent was unleashed. "Boy, you seem to think too highly of yourself, and you are delusional if you think you can rule us. You're no more than a brat." Netero was completely irritated by the Ant King's lofty attitude. He hasn't been angry for a long time now, and his body released every last bit of killing intent. As a human, an old man to bout, experiencing over 100 years of existence, to be mocked and looked down upon by the Ant King, who was only a few months old, was infuriating. However, the Ant King, relying on his superior race, dared act like he was the experienced one and like he was praising a child. This caused Netero to be extremely angry. Feeling Netero's killing intent, the king's expression darkened as he looked Netero straight in the eye and said, "We understand, since you choose to fight to the death, I will grant you your death. Killing me, it won't be easy." In the next moment, Netero's nen exploded out of his body, and the aura contained thick killing intent. Before fighting Meruem, Netero trimmed his beard and eyebrows and wore a short and a t-shirt with a heart picture on it. His appearance made it look like he was a helpless old man, but the muscle he had were full of energy and vitality, that any 100-something old man would lack. Netero folded his hands together and activated his 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva again. The golden statue of Bodhisattva appeared behind him and golden hands rained on the Ant King. The Ant King didn't sit still this time, he also used his nen and rushed at Netero with killing intent. Because he felt Netero's killing intent this time, he didn't dare to take Netero's attack anymore. Boom. The king was hit and flew away. Before he could land, another hand struck him and slapped him away in another direction. Although the king was strong and had great defense, his speed wasn't up to the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattvas, so he wasn't able to approach Netero. In this way, the Ant King suffered multiple and intense attacks from the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva in the air. 10, 20, 50 strikes. In just 10 seconds, the king was slapped from one place to another. However, the Ant King didn't stop trying to attack Netero and kept adjusting his posture whenever he was knocked in the air, trying to find an opportunity to attack. He believed that Netero wasn't as strong as him, and he wanted to use that to his advantage. He kept attacking Netero even though he couldn't reach him, and in a war of attrition, Netero won't be able to last long. Netero's 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva beats the king in terms of speed, therefore, even if the king was stronger, he can't defeat what he can't touch. But it was the same for Netero because speed alone won't help him defeat the Ant King. While the Ant King was being slapped from one side to the other, he didn't suffer any serious damage. His body was just that strong. By getting hit by the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva, the Ant King adapted to the way it attacks and the trajectory each attack takes. He knew that Netero's 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva was a superb technique, but no matter how strong the move is, it can't be perfect. What he had to do was find the flaw in the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva and attack. However, it wasn't such a simple matter. The 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva was created by Netero after decades of training, and although its form is limited, it has quite the combinations. In other words, the palms can be combined creating a new one with a different attack pattern. The combination can be changed almost infinitely. However, the Ant King was confident that he can find a flaw. Everyone has their own aura, habits, preferences, and dislikes, and finally a unique personal style. It's impossible to find out the method that Netero preferred from the numerous combinations of the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva's attacks. But as long as he observes carefully, he will find a flaw. The Ant King smiled for the first time since he was born, but in Netero's eyes, it was a hideous smile. Although Netero didn't understand the reason for that smile, he smiled as well. He felt joy from this fight. He hadn't felt such joy in a long time. Not because they are evenly matched, but because his enemy was stronger. This joy was stemming from the fact that he is a fighting maniac. Netero kept attacking, while the Ant King received those attacks. However, those seemingly violent attacks couldn't break through the Ant King's defense. The only apparent thing on the king's body was a few scratches, which is far from being considered a serious injury. The Ant King adapted to the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva's attacks and was now able to regain his posture quickly when facing the palm attacks. If Netero chooses the wrong attack, it was very likely for the Ant King to find that flaw and attack him directly. Once the Ant King gets close, Netero won't be able to deal with him using his body, and he would be torn apart. Therefore, Netero was cautious as to not reveal any flaw. The golden palms kept banging on the Ant King, which the latter couldn't avoid. He only received the attacks and endured each blow. Okay, try this out. Netero's nen became stronger, as he used a new move. After clasping his hands together and resting his right ankle on his left calf, Netero joins his thumbs and index fingers together, making a sign with his hands that looks like the number 99. The Bodhisattva unleashes a barrage of palm strikes with all its arms. Faced with this attack, the Ant King had no time or space to dodge at all. He could only watch as the giant golden palms hit his body one after the other. The power of the 99 move was astonishing. The ground was filled with holes as the Bodhisattva kept hitting without stopping. In the process of this attack, Netero was extremely calm as he remembered who he once was. Where he started. Why he started. For a long time, as long as his opponent bowed his head and stretched his hand admitting defeat, Netero would just shake his hand back. But this isn't what Netero wanted. He wanted a stronger foe. He wanted to fight to his heart's content, and this is what he got now. Netero was once recognized as the strongest nen user in the world, and the Ant King is the strongest of the Chimera ants. The battle between the two can be considered a battle between the human race and the Chimera ant race. The 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva's attacks were faster than sound. The 99 hand didn't seem to have an end, as it kept bombarding the Ant King one palm after the other. Facing such a move, the Ant King had no power to counterattack. In just a few seconds, he was hit hundreds of times. The ground was being reshaped and rocks flew across the distance as if they were being bombarded by cannons. After a while, Netero stopped his attack. In a huge pit, the Ant King stood. Although he went through hundreds of attacks, he doesn't seem to have suffered at all. What an amazingly strong body. Netero was amazed by the powerful body of the Ant King. The Ant King moved. He disappeared from his place as he rushed toward Netero. The distance between the two didn't seem to exist as he was in one place and in the next instant he was elsewhere. The moment Netero saw the Ant King disappear, he directly attacked with his 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva. However, the Ant King dodged past the golden palm and moved straight to him. Netero's foot was cut off by the Ant King, using his hand like a knife. Blood splashed out and Netero's face was gloomy. He was astonished actually. He didn't expect the Ant King to be that fast. Netero slapped his thigh where his leg was severed and stopped the bleeding. On the cliff, Allan, who saw this, knew that the fight was about to end. The Ant King felt Netero's nen not weaken even though his leg was cut off. On the contrary, it was getting stronger. Seeing this, Meruem said coldly, "Are you going to use your last move? That means that you're exhausted." Netero said coldly, "Ant King, you're indeed strong. The next move is my strongest. If you can block it, then I lose. I will definitively stop it," the Ant King said confidently. Netero raised his hands as if to pray. Netero's movement seemed slow, but it was extremely fast. The Ant King moved at this moment and closed into Netero before severing one of his hands. Netero, who lost one foot and one arm, seemed to lose his vitality. In the eyes of the Ant King, Netero can't continue fighting. "This battle, you lost," the Ant King said. He didn't kill Netero since the latter gave him a good fighting experience, but that only if Netero admit defeat and surrendered. But that's obviously not happening. Ignoring the pain, Netero looked at the Ant King calmly and said gloomily, "The last move can be used. Even if I don't have any limb left, I can pray to activate it, Ant King." Netero was serious. He wasn't trying to act strong, and this made the Ant King frown. But what surprised him, even more, was Netero's aura getting stronger again. "I will tell you, Ant King, the prayer isn't done with hands or feet, but with the heart. This is Netero's last resort, meant to be used only when he cannot utilize any other of Guanyin's abilities. Netero first prays with all his heart, raising only one hand. No words can describe this move." The Ant King was stunned. The Bodhisattva then appeared behind Ant King and tenderly clasps him with its palms. This is the Zero Hand. Without having time to react, the Ant King was already within the Bodhisattva's palms. The Bodhisattva looked at the Ant King lovingly and then caressed him gently. The Ant King didn't resist. It was like returning to his mother, as he felt warm. However, the Ant King suddenly woke up from his dreamlike state, as the pair of palms held him firmly and killing intent drowned on him like an ocean. Even if he struggled with all his might, he won't be able to escape this move. A second later, numerous particles of light emerged from the open mouth of the Bodhisattva, and finally, it launched an attack with all the energy Netero had left. The energy bomb was fired from the mouth of the Bodhisattva, forming a huge beam of light that blasted the Ant King. This was definitively the strongest move a human could have, the ultimate power a human could attain. The Zero Hand exhausted all of Netero's vitality. Netero raised his middle finger at the Ant King and said, "Go to death, Ant King." A huge cloud of dust and smoke rose into the sky, covering the entire valley as it rose into the sky. For the first time, the Ant King felt the true power of the humans. When the light beam disappeared, the valley was completely silent, as the dust started settling down. Did I kill him? Netero slumped weakly on the ground, his eyes looking at the smoke and dust in front of him. But after his sentence, a figure slowly walked out, and it was the Ant King. His whole body was covered in scars, and it was obvious that he received damage from the last move. But it was just that, he was damaged, not killed. Even Zero Hand can't kill you, what a monster. At this moment, Netero smiled warily. Even after exhausting his vitality, he failed to seriously hurt his enemy. This was indeed an eye-opener for him. The Ant King looked at Netero from a distance and his mind wasn't as calm as he looked. He felt the astonishing vitality a moment ago, and now, it seemed that nothing was left of it. Netero seemed to age quickly. He looked old, too old, like a withered flower. It indicates that his life has come to an end. "It was you who lost," the Ant King said, but he didn't attack Netero again. Netero tried his best to speak, "It's indeed this old man who lost." The king then seriously said, "Although you lost, you have impressed us. I enjoyed the battle." "Haha, you can do it now," Netero said. The Ant King replied coldly, "I don't need to do anything, you will die soon. You exhausted all of your life energy and you will die." At this time, the Ant King sat cross-legged and said, "I want to see what a human being will look like as he finally dies due to his life force extinguishing." Ha ha ha. Netero smiled. He was indeed dying. He used the Zero Hand with every last bit of energy he had, however, he didn't expect the Ant King to be curious about his death. It really didn't know what kind of creature a human being was. "In my body, a weapon sufficient to kill you was installed. Poor man's rose, a bomb that once my heart stops beating, will go off. This will definitely kill you." Hearing this, the Ant King thought about Netero's words. "Why tell me this?" the Ant King asked. Then he suddenly said, "Are you telling me to escape?" Netero replied, "I know that you won't run away, because you don't believe that a dying human can have any means to kill you." "Yes, the Ant King won't escape. I even resisted your strongest attack. What can a mere human weapon do?" Netero replied, "Then you can wait and die." He knew that the Ant King was arrogant, and wouldn't believe him, that's why he said it. Netero closed his eyes, before slowly raising his skinning right hand and moving his finger toward his heart. The Ant King didn't stop him, because he wanted to see what will happen when the weapon would go off. However, just as Netero was about to kill himself, a hand blocked his finger. The Ant King's pupil shrank slightly. Allan stood beside Netero as he stopped that finger from penetrating the latter's chest. "Sorry Chairman, I'm late." Hearing Allan's voice, Netero opened his eyes. "Are you going to fight?" Netero asked. Allan nodded, and looked directly at the Ant King before saying to Netero, "Hey, didn't you say before that I got to fight if you couldn't win?" Hearing this, Netero explained, "To be honest, I thought you left after seeing my fight. What do you mean? Allan was confused. After watching my fight and how badly I lost, I thought you would leave and save yourself, Netero said. So, in your eyes, I'm not as good as the Ant King, Chairman? Allan smiled. But he didn't blame Netero for underestimating him. The Ant King's power was quite amazing. Netero's 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva didn't cause much damage except for the 99th hand and the 0th hand, which were also almost as ineffective. Netero replied, "You're very strong, but the Ant King is stronger. Even my 0th hand couldn't cause him much damage," Netero sighed. Allan shrugged and said, "So, you planned to commit suicide and take the Ant King with you? He, after all, this old man is already on his last breath. If there is nothing else we could do, I can only sacrifice my life for the greater good," Netero said with a helpless tone. "Chairman, the dedication and self-sacrifice for the future of mankind is really admirable," Allan said with a thumb up. "If it were you, what would you choose?" Netero asked. "Oh, I'm not as great as the chairman. I don't want to sacrifice my life to die with the enemy." Allan scratched the back of his head and said honestly. Netero was willing to die to ensure that mankind doesn't go extinct due to the ants, which Allan greatly admired. "Then why did you come here instead of running away? Could it be you're still confident in defeating the king after seeing my fight?" Netero asked. "Well, yes, I already knew how strong the king was, however, he isn't an invincible existence," Allan replied. "Huh?" After hearing this, Netero said, "It seems that you still didn't go all out against me before. I'm really curious about your power now." "Well, I have a few hidden cards, enough to defeat him," Allan said sincerely. Netero nodded. "In that case I'm relieved, then I'll leave it to you. I'm an old man, even if I don't kill myself, I will soon die, but I hope to last long enough to see defeat the Ant King. Don't worry, you will have a chance to witness everything. Besides, I won't let you die like this, Chairman." Hearing Allan's words, Netero was puzzled, as he asked, "What do you mean? Can you save a dying old man like me?" "Well, before I go fight with the king, you can eat this first," Allan said. "What's this?" Seeing the bean Allan gave him, Netero was puzzled. "That's a senzu bean," Allan replied. "Eat it, I believe you will be surprised." This was the only senzu bean Allan had, and originally, he planned to preserve it for the fight with the king if needed. But, since Netero was about to die, Allan decided to give it to him, since he needs it. Netero was the Hunter Association's pillar and the one who kept it standing. The impact would be big if he dies. Moreover, Allan admired Netero from the bottom of his head, and he didn't want him to die. Netero has never heard about something called a senzu bean before and didn't know about its effect, but he believed in Allan. After a few seconds after eating the senzu bean, Netero's dried-up body and old face started regaining brilliance. His originally skinny body started getting more muscular and his vitality seemed to return again. He almost returned to his state before the fight started. Not far away, the Ant King witnessed the recovery and widened his eyes in amazement. It was incredible. A dying old man recovered instantly by just eating a thumb-sized bean. The Ant King could feel the vitality in Netero's body recovering quickly, but Netero was the one shocked most as it was happening in his body. "What a magical bean, it restored my life and vitality. I was just dying and now I'm as good as new." Allan just smiled. "Allan, thank you, you saved my life. I will remember this huge favor," Netero said. "It's okay, Chairman, now, leave the rest to me." "Do you want me to help? I have fully recovered. If we fight together, we should be able to kill him," Netero said. "Don't worry, Chairman, let me do it alone," Allan said. "Well, okay." Netero didn't insist and left the battlefield to observe from a distance. Netero fully recovered, and even if Allan couldn't defeat the Ant King, Netero would fight again and if needed, he would use the poor man's rose. In short, the Ant King won't leave this valley alive. This is for the survival of the human race. In the big valley, Allan and the Ant King faced each with tens of meters between them. They looked at each other without making a move. Suddenly, Allan heard his system giving him a choice. Ding. Make a choice. 1. Before starting the fight with the Ant King, turn around and run. Reward, golden treasure chest. 2. Without much nonsense, fight with the Ant King and kill him. Reward, god-level treasure chest. Without hesitation, Allan picked the second option. Since he was here to fight, he won't escape no matter what. In this battle, either the king dies, or he dies. Both of them can't exist at the same time after this. He already had this mentality before he came here, so he was prepared to use all his power in this fight. Although the Ant King is strong, Allan had many trump cards and abilities. He can kill the Ant King. Come on, Miriam, Allan said. Unexpectedly, you know my name. The Ant King said. Hee, of course, I know. Now then, Miriam, do you best, Allan said provocatively. I will grant you that wish then. The Ant King said indifferently. In the next second, the king disappeared and rushed toward Allan. Allan could see the king, but if he used Saru, he won't be fast enough, so instead, he used Flash Step. However, he didn't use it to run away or hide, but he was heading toward the Ant King. In the next instant, the king's attack was blocked by Allan. From a distance, one could only see two blurs colliding, one being purple while the other is blue. With them at the center, a bright pillar of light flew toward the sky. Taking a closer look, Allan's hand was covered in black while he pushed against the Ant King's palm. This is the armament Haki's when it reaches a high level. It improved Allan's power greatly. Allan observed the battle between the Ant King and Netero and knew how strong the former was. If he used his Nen to fight the Ant King, Allan was sure that he would die. Even Netero's overpowered Nen was defeated by the Ant King. What can his Nen do against this monster? So even if he used Nen to attack or defend, it would mean nothing to the Ant King. That's why Allan wasn't using Nen against the Ant King. He could only fight with other abilities. You're quite strong if you can block my attack, said the Ant King. He wasn't surprised because he knew that Allan was powerful. Same to you, Allan replied. The Ant King was amazingly strong, and he could only resist using armament Haki. Then let me see how many attacks can you stop. When his voice fell, the Ant King launched another attack. Allan wasn't afraid at all and used observation and armament Haki to fight with him. While using armament Haki can strengthen Allan's attack and defense, observation Haki read his opponent and even predict the future. Observation Haki along with flash steps can help Allan keep up with the Ant King. Boom. 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 Suddenly, explosions filled the valley. Netero witnessed the battle with surprise. Allan is really fierce in a close battle. His offense, defense, and speed seem to match the king's. Maybe he can really kill him. In the valley, the battle continued. Allan and the Ant King kept colliding and exchanging attacks. The Ant King didn't show his real power from the start, but when he found that Allan could compete with him, he realized that Allan was stronger than he expected. You really didn't disappoint me, the Ant King said. Allan responded with an attack. Shinro Tensei. The Ant King was pushed back immediately by the mysterious power in Allan's hand. This is. The Ant King frowned. He didn't expect Allan to have such power. As strong as he is, he couldn't resist that power. Banshu Tenon. Allan raised his hand at the Ant King, and instantly, the Ant King was pulled by a strong gravitational force. Armament, hardening. While being such toward Allan, the latter covered his fist in Haki and punched. The Ant King flew far away and destroyed a hill on his way. The entire attack didn't even take 2 seconds, a strategy Allan thought off on the fly. And the Ant King suffered more damage from that attack than he did after fighting Netero. After receiving that punch, the Ant King actually felt pain. When used together, Shinro Tensei's repulsive force and Banshu Tenon's attractive force took the Ant King by surprise. The Ant King looked at Allan carefully as he didn't know what the latter did. The Ant King didn't understand how the gravitational force was used. It was a tricky ability and he couldn't ignore it. "Ant King, you have become so cautious just after taking a punch from me?" Allan taunted the Ant King. "Human, don't get arrogant so quickly." The Ant King was successfully angered. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared and rushed at Allan with all his power. Allan didn't move, he just stood in the same place and raised his hand toward the Ant King. "Using that trick again?" The Ant King saw Allan's hand and knew he would use the gravity trick again. "That power is strong, and even I can't completely resist it, but I will still try." The Ant King pulled his arms in front of him to block, as he wanted to test that attack again. Shinra Tensei. In the next second, the repulsive force launched the Ant King away. But since he blocked this time, he didn't suffer much. After landing, the Ant King immediately moved again. He thought that Allan would be using the other trick to pull him back. But the Ant King was already moving and Allan couldn't use Banshu Tenon on him. "You actually found a way to deal with it so quickly. You're really something else." Although the Ant King was his enemy, Allan still admired his talent. The Ant King moved quickly as he attacked Allan from different angles. He thought that Allan could only use Shinra Tensei from the front. Allan saw this, and strangely, for the Ant King, he didn't evade or move away from the attack. It was as if he didn't pay attention to the Ant King's attacks at all. "What?" The Ant King appeared suddenly behind Allan. "Take this." The Ant King aimed his hand at Allan's neck, in an attempt to decapitate him. However, with Allan as the center, the repulsive force once again appeared and pushed the Ant King with great force. Boom! The Ant King flew far away and destroyed many hills on his way as Allan used more power in the last Shinra Tensei. A huge crater appeared around Allan, as the ground was destroyed. The Ant King stood up far away. "How is it? Are you surprised?" Allan smiled. "It's really a great power." The king patted the dust on his body and smiled slightly. "No," he grinned. This is the first time he actually gave any indication of a smile since he was born. But his smile seemed terrible. He looked like a monster opening his mouth to swallow his prey in delight. After getting sent flying by the last Shinra Tensei, the Ant King was provoked. A strong aura exploded from his body as the Ant King was getting serious. Allan was aware of this, and from now on the battle will start. "I won't get caught by that trick again," the Ant King said. Hearing this, Allan smiled. "Don't worry, I won't use it again." The Ant King didn't reply, but he didn't believe Allan. If Allan didn't use the gravitational power, it would be beneficial to the Ant King, but if Allan deceived him, he will be once again thrown again. Therefore, the Ant King won't believe Allan's words. He didn't believe that Allan would force himself to a disadvantage by not using that power. But, the Ant King guessed wrong this time. Allan didn't intend to use Shinra Tensei anymore. Not only that, he didn't plan on using Banshu Tenon as well. Because Allan knew that the combination of Shinra Tensei and Banshu Tenon can't be used on the Ant King anymore. The king would be greatly alert to those two techniques and he won't be hit by them. The same trick doesn't work twice for him. Furthermore, Shinra Tensei and Banshu Tenon weren't invincible techniques, they had a cooldown of 5 seconds. So, they can't be used continuously. However, it wasn't like he won't use them no matter what. When they have a use, he will use them. It's also clear that Shinra Tensei and Banshu Tenon can't cause much damage to the Ant King. At this moment, the Ant King moved. He punched from a distance, causing his nen to travel toward Allan at a great speed, destroying the ground on its trail. Allan jumped up, and as soon as he did, the Ant King attacked him. Allan wasn't afraid, and with Haki, he predicted and blocked the Ant King's attacks. The Ant King's expression changed slightly as he was surprised by Allan's reaction speed. Could it be, he saw through my attack? While fighting, the Ant King realized this, but he didn't stop attacking. Regardless of whether Allan predicted his attacks or not, The Ant King believed that as long as he continue attacking, Allan won't be able to follow him. As long as Allan reveals a little flaw, the Ant King was confident in killing him. Allan knew what the Ant King was thinking, and indeed, he wasn't as good in terms of endurance and physical strength as this monster. Being able to fight head-to-head with the Ant King depended entirely on his haki. Over time, he won't be able to withstand the Ant King's attacks. Allan knew this very well. Therefore, he will not fight a war of attrition with the Ant King and come to a quick decision. Boom. 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 The Ant King's attacks were simple, lacked style, and used brute force. Although his moves were crude, they were also the most direct and effective. Once hit, the consequences would be dire. If it weren't for the haki, Allan wouldn't dare fight the Ant King in close combat. Boom. A powerful momentum erupted from Allan as he used Conqueror haki. The Ant King was shocked for a split second and Allan used it to his advantage. Ice time. When the Ant King came back to his senses, he was already covered in ice. It happened so fast that the Ant King couldn't react. He became an ice sculpture while maintaining his attacking posture. Even when frozen, his aura still radiated strongly. Allan dared not take this lightly. He knew very well that the Ant King won't be trapped for more than a few seconds. Allan quickly gathered his power and used the highest form of armament haki, the Ryo, and clenched his fist. The Ryo form of haki is an advanced form of hardening that can cause damage directly to the enemy's internals. No matter how strong the body is, it can't defend against this attack. The frozen Ant King took Allan's punch firmly. The power behind the punch broke the ice and sent the Ant King flying away before he hit a mountain and stopped. Allan didn't take advantage of the situation to chase after the Ant King, because he wanted to see how much damage his last attack managed to do. The dust slowly dissipated as the Ant King slowly stood up with a pale face. His mouth dripped with purple blood. The Ryo is really strong. Allan was overjoyed. The Ant King wiped the blood from his mouth and stared at Allan with cold eyes. You actually made me bleed and feel pain. I have to admit you're strong enough to hurt me. I will remember you. Allan could feel it. It seems that the Ant King was going all out now. This also shows that the Ant King can't be careless anymore. This shows Allan's power, which threatened the Ant King. The battle was about to get more intense. The Ant King rushed toward Allan and in a blink of an eye, he crossed tens of meters. Flash step. Allan directly dodged. He knew that the moment the Ant King got serious, his power will grow exponentially. Physical strength is limited, and armament haki can't defend for long. Allan won't be able to match the Ant King for long as it is. Rankyaku. Allan kicked while moving back. An azure blue slash flashed out and rushed toward the Ant King, who wasn't expecting Allan to have this kind of skill. He was hit by the Rankyaku, but he wasn't hurt even a bit. That attack can't break his defense. This was also within Allan's expectation, as the next attack was his true aim. Fire release, great fire annihilation. Allan formed hand seals quickly before spitting a large mouthful of flames that turned into a huge wave and swept toward the Ant King. The Ant King was directly swallowed by the flames. The flames turned 1/3 of the valley into a sea of flames. Allan thought that even if the Ant King was strong, it won't be safe from this attack. Allan's strategy was using different skills to overwhelm the Ant King. He won't use a technique more than 3 times. As for a large flame like the Great Fire Annihilation, Allan will only use it once. The reason was simple: if he was hit once, the Ant King will be wary of that skill and the chance of him getting caught in it once more was close to 0. The flames gradually dissipated and a figure appeared in Allan's sight. He saw the Ant King's arms scorched black, and many burn marks appeared on his body. The Ant King blocked the flames with his arms, but he couldn't completely defend himself as he was swallowed by the flames. The flames were different from other attacks, as it was enough to injure the Ant King. If someone else was in the Ant King's place, he would have been burnt to crisps. The king stared at Allan with eyes full of killing intent. He didn't expect that Allan would be able to force him into such a state. He, the Chimera Ant King, had sustained such injuries by a mere human. Bastard! The Ant King's anger reached its peak. He rushed at Allan violently, but surprisingly, Allan didn't dodge. He stared at the Ant King and raised his arm, his muscle enlarged as he punched. Nail punch. Allan used the nail punch to counter the Ant King's attack. Boom. A shockwave broke out, creating violent winds that passed through the entire valley. After the collision, both sides separated briefly. How is this possible? Why does he still have so much power? Is this guy really human? The Ant King looked at Allan in the distance as he wandered. Because Allan's power exceeded all his expectations. What's more frightening was Allan's calmness. He seemed at ease. This meant he wasn't going all out yet. He still had other cards up his sleeve. The Ant King frowned. His enemy was tricky one. While the Ant King was contemplating, Allan suddenly launched an attack. What? The Ant King was surprised that Allan would initiate an attack. The biggest surprise was the method he used to attack. Ice spears. Allan activated the power of his ice fruit and 2 huge ice spears condensed in front of him. Before long, the spears were thrown like arrows at the Ant King. The Ant King snorted before flicking his tail and destroying the spears. However, Allan's attack didn't end there. Ice time capsule. The special thing about this attack was that anything hit by it will be frozen solid. The Ant King underestimated this attack and he was frozen instantly. Crack! Crack! Without waiting for Allan to attack, the king broke out of the ice. You think this will freeze me? You really underestimate me, the Ant King said coldly. Allan wasn't surprised as he said, how about you try this? Allan raised his hands. The cold air swept over at the Ant King and a tornado was formed in an instant. The Ant King was at the center of the tornado and after a few seconds, the Ant King was frozen in a diamond-shaped ice cube. Looking at the Ant King, Allan smiled slightly and said, now, how many seconds do you need to get out? 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Suddenly the ice cracked and the Ant King broke free. The Ant King was breathing heavily as the coldness affected his body. It was flames, now it's ice. What's with this guy? Why can't he use the ability of nature? The king stared at Allan in the distance in surprise and confusion. How did a human obtain those powers? Those powers have surpassed anything a human can do. Very well, if this is the case, I will use everything I have. The Ant King gave a low growl as his nen burst out and dispelled the coldness in his body. What a terrifying aura. After feeling the nen emanating from the Ant King, Allan's face became serious. And on the cliff a few hundred meters away, Netaro's face was gloomy. The Ant King's aura is terrifying, but then again, if Allan can push him to this point, then he must have what it takes to cope with him. The nen around the Ant King's body was like a red coat covering him. This is... Allan frowned. There is no doubt that this is the Ant King's ability. It seems that his ability is to increase his external defense. Well, let's try it. Allan lifted his hand, and a few ice spears appeared. Banshu Tenon. In an instant, Allan's hand wanted to pull the Ant King toward him, but the already vigilant Ant King moved the moment Allan raised his hand. Partisan. Allan fired the ice spears. The Ant King could easily avoid them, but he didn't. Crack. The ice spears shattered as soon as they hit the Ant King's body. With a wave, Allan launched a few other ice spears at the Ant King, who snorted and didn't move. Crack. All the spears shattered once again. Allan expected this and decided since small attacks can't hurt him, then what about a big one? With a wave of his hand, a huge, 100 meters ball of ice was formed above the valley. Under Allan's control, the ice ball slammed down toward the Ant King. The Ant King's complexion changed. The size of the ice ball surprised him greatly. How can this be done by a human? But it wasn't the time to think about it, he can't avoid it anymore. It was too big and he had no time to avoid it. Boom. The giant ball of ice hit the Ant King directly. The whole valley shook as a huge icy pit was formed. Allan knew that with the defense of the Ant King, there won't be much damage caused by the ice ball, it can only temporarily seal him. And soon enough, the Ant King will break out, so Allan's purpose all along was to temporarily suppress the Ant King. Ice Age. After smashing the Ant King, Allan used his ice fruit again and froze the entire valley. The entire valley was frozen in a few seconds. Netero, who was watching not too far away, escaped away as soon as he saw the ice moving quickly all over the place. The temperature suddenly dropped below zero. Allan knew that the Ant King won't die so easily. He didn't continue his attacks as he moved away from the valley. He wanted to regain some of his strength before the Ant King broke through the ice again. He must recover as much as possible for the soon-to-be next wave of attacks. In the dark sky, Allan recovered his energy as he waited. The battle with the Ant King was exhausting. The last two moves he used were just to give himself some time to recover. It should take the Ant King less than 3 minutes to emerge out of the ice. At the same time, the frozen Ant King was unable to move, but his consciousness remained. The Ant King concentrated all the strength in his body and burst out with one move. His nen erupted as all the obstacles in front of him were destroyed. The huge ice ball couldn't withstand the pressure and shattered. Even the ice a few tens of meters away shattered as well. Boom. Finally, the Ant King broke out of the ice. Even though he broke through the ice, the Ant King couldn't get rid of the coldness in his body completely. With another eruption, his nen covered him and the coldness finally subsided. As he recovered, the Ant King tried to find Allan. Looking up, the Ant King found him in the sky. Although he can rush into the sky with his nen, he couldn't stay up there for long. So, he dispelled the thought of fighting Allan in the air. Allan had supremacy in air combat, while the Ant King was good at fighting on the ground. During this time, the Ant King actually sat on the ground without paying attention to Allan and looked calm. The Ant King was recovering his energy as well. It wasn't just Allan who needed to recover his energy, but the Ant King as well felt the need right now. Moreover, he actually suffered some injuries. As the king of the Chimera Ant, he was more resilient and recovered fast. Allan recovered 70% to 80% of his stamina, and stared at the Ant King, ready to start fighting again. This time, Allan decided to use the Ramble Fruit to fight with the Ant King. A blue arc jumped on Allan's finger, turning into a lightning bolt striking downward at the Ant King. The Ant King knew that Allan had the power to use lightning from when he destroyed the palace. Therefore, the Ant King was prepared and quickly jumped away from the lightning strike. Before the Ant King could make a move, several other lightning bolts stuck down. Each bolt was 1 meter thick and can easily leave a hole on the ground. It didn't even take a second to reach the ground from 1,000 meters above. The Ant King reacted immediately. TN. The author seems confused about the speed of lightning here. While the sound is fast, lightning moves 120 kilometers per second, he made it seem that Meruem heard thunder before he moved, which is impossible in this case. 1. Only moving extremely fast allowed him to avoid lightning. However, as he dodged, a blue light rushed toward him. The speed at which the blue light moved was dazzling. Seconds later, the Ant King discovered that Allan was that light. His body was covered in lightning as he attacked. Thunder Palm. Allan's palms were shining with high electric current as he hit the Ant King violently. The Ant King was knocked back as the electric current sent shock across his body. The electric current can easily break the Ant King's defense and paralyze his body for a bit. Allan took advantage of this and raised his hands, then shouted, 100 million volt, Thunder Dragon. A blue dragon made of lightning was condensed as it swooped the Ant King. The Ant King wanted to avoid, but his body was still paralyzed by Allan's Thunder Palm. Therefore, he couldn't escape from this dragon. Boom. The Thunder Dragon, which contained 100 million volts, swallowed the Ant King. The Ant King was subjected to electric torture at this moment. His body was numb and a large number of cells on his body were destroyed. Allan couldn't help squinting as he looked at the Ant King. Obviously, 100 million volts caused some damage to the Ant King. He could feel that the Ant King's aura weakened. Allan's mouth raised into a slight smile as he guessed that even the Ant King can't completely defend against the Ramble Fruit's power. The power of lightning was indeed strong. The 100 million volts just now weren't Allan's most powerful attack, he just regarded it as one of his stronger moves. He can't still use more power with Thunder Fruit, for example, 200 million volts. Just when he was about to use a stronger attack, the Ant King suddenly released a huge amount of nen. Feeling this, Allan was surprised that the Ant King could release such a large amount of nen even with his injuries. What a monster! This also strengthened Allan's idea of killing the Ant King. If he doesn't kill him now, then with his racial talent, he will become stronger and stronger with time. At that time, no one would be able to face him. Therefore, before the Ant King really grows, it's best to kill him now. With this in mind, Allan's killing intent grew toward the Ant King. The Ant King felt this and fixed his eyes on Allan. He also wanted to kill Allan. However, he can't move. He wanted to recover from the last attack as soon as possible. Allan saw the Ant King was using his nen to speed up his recovery. Immediately, Allan made a move, to prevent the Ant King from recovering. Boom! A bolt of lightning struck the Ant King in the distance. The Ant King quickly dodged awkwardly. Because of his injuries, his mobility was limited. Allan didn't give him any chance, he quickly attacked. Light. This was Allan using the speed of lightning to move, which was faster than any speed the Ant King hoped to reach. The Ant King could not believe that someone surpassed him in speed. Boom! 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 Every attack Allan sent was accompanied by an electric current. Although it wasn't as strong as the Thunder Dragon, each attack continued to accumulate on the Ant King's body. The wounds the Ant King suffered continued to increase little by little, and eventually, they became serious injuries. No matter how strong the Ant King's body was, it can't withstand that amount of damage. Puff! The Ant King spat a mouthful of purple blood. His face became gloomy as he never imagined a human would actually make him spit blood. The Ant King became enraged. As the king of the Chimera Ants, it won't be defeated by a human. Nen exploded from his body and covered him completely. The main purpose of this cover was to defend. When the electric current hit the Nen cover, it will greatly reduce the power or even cancel it. Unless the current was stronger than the Nen covering him, the Ant King won't receive damage. Allan noticed this and increased the power behind his attacks. 30 million volts, Vari. Allan raised his right hand and launched a lightning bolt again. The Ant King couldn't dodge on time and was hit directly. However, the attack was offset by the Nen covering the Ant King's body. Allan raised his hand again and launched a more powerful attack. 50 million volts, Kirin. This move was enough. Although the attack was stopped by the Ant King's Nen, the Nen covering his body was also destroyed. Since his protection was destroyed, the Ant King could only move quickly and avoid it again. Allan sneered, no matter how fast the Ant King moves, he can't be faster than lightning. 50 million volts, Rock. A giant bird made of lightning spread its wing and rushed toward the Ant King extremely fast. The Ant King couldn't dodge at all and was instantly hit by the Thunder Bird. Boom. Although this attack wasn't as strong as the Thunder Dragon, it still made the already worn-out body of the Ant King feel like he was pierced by thousands of needles. The strong electric current was causing his cells to die and severely injuring him. Seeing this, Allan took advantage of the situation and launched another attack, not giving the Ant King any chance to recover. 60 million volts, Thunder Tiger. The lightning once again condensed into a new shape, and a fierce tiger emerged and pounced on the Ant King, throwing him to the ground and shocking him once again. In a short 2 minutes, the Ant King suffered many attacks and his body was greatly damaged. Even after being attacked by waves after waves of lightning strikes, the Ant King's body was still holding on. He was powerful beyond imagination. This guy. Allan frowned. He originally thought that after so many attacks, the Ant King would be hit hard after so many attacks. But he seemed to underestimate the Ant King. His vitality was simply out of this world. If someone else was facing this monster, he would have collapsed in despair long ago. But Allan was still firmly standing as his goal didn't change. At this moment, the Ant King was still standing. His body suffered many attacks and many parts were scorched. Even so, his aura was still strong. Allan realized one thing. It was difficult to kill the Ant King just with the rumble fruit. Although the rumble fruit could cause great destruction, the Ant King was strong and recovered fast. The rumble fruit won't have enough lethality to end the Ant King. As for other abilities, Allan had a lot of them, but one that can actually threaten the Ant King was rare. Even though the ice fruit was on par with the lightning fruit, it can't kill the Ant King. The ice fruit was more of support right now. To kill the Ant King, other abilities need to be used. At this moment, Allan saw the Ant King rush over at him. His aura was still powerful. This was quite surprising. Obviously, he was injured, but he still could have such amazing net power. What a monster! Allan's figure flashed as he used the power of the rumble fruit to fight with the Ant King. Even though he wasn't moving as fast as he could, Allan was surprised that the Ant King could match his current speed. Suddenly, the Ant King's nen erupted once again and it was stronger than before. He released an attack that rushed at Allan at the speed of sound. Allan was surprised by the sudden explosion of power and was hit by the Ant King's attack. As a fist passed through Allan's body, the Ant King frowned. He felt that he didn't hit Allan. Looking at Allan's pierced body, he seemed to have recovered quickly and wasn't hurt in any way. The Ant King instantly understood that this might be related to Allan's ability. Allan was immune to physical attacks. Unless the Ant King used Nen to attack, the Ant King won't be able to touch Allan. Thunder flash. Allan raised his hand and a dazzling blue current turned into light. The unprepared Ant King couldn't cover his eyes quickly and was blinded for a short moment. Thor's spear. A spear made of lightning condensed quickly and blasted the Ant King violently. Because of the light, the Ant King wasn't able to take action on time and his body was hit by the spear. The spear of lightning pierced his body and severely injured him. Taking advantage of the damage caused to the Ant King, Allan quickly activated his ice fruit. In a short instant, the Ant King was sealed in the ice. Blue lightning gushed out of Allan, forming a thundercloud in the sky. Allan planned to strike the Ant King as soon as he managed to break through the ice. After a while, the Ant King finally emerged from the ice. His body had a new wound caused by the lightning spear. Before the Ant King could catch his breath, he suddenly heard a loud bang. Looking up, he saw a thundercloud appears above his head, and inside, a strong power resided. He could tell that the thundercloud was accumulating power, waiting to strike. At this moment, a huge lightning bolt struck from the sky. The Ant King had no time to evade and he was swallowed by lightning. The already damaged body of the Ant King became even more damaged as he spat a mouthful of purple blood. This was the second time he was forced to spit blood. The lightning strike was very painful, but the Ant King's willpower was amazing. Even with that much pain he gritted his teeth and endured without a scream. He wanted to kill Allan desperately. However, right now, the Ant King couldn't sense or see Allan at all. His mind was a mess, and if he calmed down for a bit, he would be able to find Allan, but with his current injuries and anger, he can no longer calm down. At this time, Allan was inside the thundercloud, feeding it and making it bigger. Wouch! As soon as the first lightning bolt fell from the sky, the thundercloud started raining lightning toward the Ant King without stopping. The valley became a mess as everything was destroyed with large pits covering the ground. Did he die? Allan narrowed his eyes slightly. The last attack consumed a lot of his energy. The continuous lightning strikes were several times stronger than Netero's 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva. Even the Ant King won't be safe from this attack. What's more, the Ant King is already injured. Even if he doesn't die, the battle will end soon. There? Allan saw the Ant King, who although standing, was scorched all over. Moreover, his aura was much weaker than before. He was obviously greatly weakened. Allan believed that the Ant King won't survive another powerful attack. However, considering the power he already consumed, Allan won't be able to use an attack of that scale anymore. Allan's stamina was limited, and it was impossible for him to use powerful attacks one after another using his devil fruits. Since he couldn't use them, Allan decided to use other abilities to deal with the Ant King. There are still abilities that Allan didn't use which were powerful enough to kill the Ant King. For example, he had Star Platinum, his swordsmanship, etc. However, Allan didn't intend to use any of those. He wanted to use the Sharingan. The Ant King never thought he would ever be forced into such a state by a mere human. Although he didn't want to admit it, the Ant King knew that he can't win against Allan. At this moment, the Ant King saw Allan slowly walking toward him. The Ant King wanted to kill this human, but due to his injuries, he had no chance to do it. Allan moved slowly as he stared at the Ant King with his currently dark eyes. The Ant King didn't want to be outdone, so he stared back at Allan. However, in the next second, the Ant King saw Allan's eyes transform. What's wrong with his eyes? The Ant King frowned. Relying on his instinct, he knew that those eyes were dangerous. The Sharingan Allan possessed belonged to Uchiha Itachi. With Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu, as well as Susanoo, those Sharingan eyes were almost invincible. At this moment, the Ant King who was staring at Allan's eyes was caught by Tsukuyomi. He suddenly found himself in a weird place. The sky was red and everything else was in black and white. Where is this? The Ant King frowned. Inside this space, time moved extremely slowly. The Ant King frowned. His instincts made him feel that this world wasn't real. This world didn't have any aura of life, as if it is a dead space. As for how he appeared here, the Ant King already guessed that. Is it those eyes? Was I hypnotized? The Ant King thought. When he saw the pair of scarlet eyes, he could feel something bad about them. Miryuum, welcome to my Tsukuyomi's world. A voice suddenly rang in the space. The Ant King concentrated in front of him and saw Allan. Ant King, I created this world, everything here is under my command, Allan said. Apparently, the Ant King didn't believe him. You don't believe me? Well, let me prove it. The next second, the Ant King found himself tied to a pillar with his body locked in chains. Even with his strength, he couldn't break free. This made him panic slightly since he didn't seem to have his great power here. In the Tsukuyomi world, everything is under the control of the caster, and the victim would be put in great mental suffering. Now, the Ant King was in Allan's hands, and at his disposal. Unless the mental power of the Ant King is strong enough to break the Tsukuyomi, he will suffer. A shining sword appeared in Allan's hand. He walked toward the Ant King and said, Miryuum, in the next 72 hours, you will be slashed by my sword without retaliating. I wonder if you can hold on when I'm finished. A chilling smile appeared on Allan's face while the Ant King was getting scared. He felt himself facing great evil. Allan directly inserted the sword into the Ant King's body. The shining blade went through the Ant King's body and purple blood flowed out. The Ant King couldn't believe that a mere ordinary sword was able to pierce his body. He was most proud of his body's defense, and now, his body was actually pierced by a sword. The Ant King finally understood that he is inside an illusion created by Allan. That's the only reason an ordinary sword could penetrate his defense. However, despite figuring this out, the feeling he got was real. He felt himself being stabbed. 72 hours in the Tsukuyomi world was just a second outside. By the time the illusion came to an end, the Ant King was on his knees. The spiritual attack was effective. Coupled with his damaged body, the Ant King was experiencing mental and physical pain. Let me end this right now with the strongest sword. Allan walked in front of the Ant King. The Ant King raised his head and looked at Allan and the black sword in his hand. This is the reward Allan obtained before, the Saijo Owazamono series sword, the strongest sword in existence, Yoru. Allan looked at him and said, Meruem, I will use the strongest sword in the world to kill you, you should feel honored. The Ant King didn't say anything, he kept his eyes on the sword in Allan's hand. He felt a terrifying aura from the sword, and for the first time in his short life, the Ant King felt death. Allan noticed the look on the Ant King's face and smiled slightly. So, Yoru can kill the Ant King after all. As Allan's voice fell, he gripped the handle of Yoru tightly before violently swinging it. Boom. An azure flying slash moved straight toward the Ant King. The power behind the slash can't be described. Facing the powerful slash, the heavily injured Ant King couldn't dodge in time. The Ant King could only stand in front of the slash with his hand in front of him, trying to block the slash. A huge explosion occurred as soon as the flying slash hit the Ant King. Violent shockwaves smashed the boulders in the valley one after the other before subsiding. A huge pit appeared on the ground and inside it, the Ant King was lying. A huge wound appeared on his body and purple blood dripped out on the ground. Seeing the Ant King's current state, Allan said, You're really a monster, you're still alive after that. The Ant King stared at Allan gloomily without speaking. The Ant King felt his life was coming to an end. He was surprised when the wound caused by this slash wouldn't heal. No, it's not that he can't heal it, but the healing rate was too slow. The bleeding was too fast for him to heal. If this continued for 10 minutes, he would lose his life. The Ant King was aware he can't survive today, so, he raised his head and stared at Allan. A black aura appeared around the Ant King as he roared, You're just a mere human, don't be so proud, even if die today, I will kill you. Hearing this, Allan's expression changed as he thought, this guy wants to blow himself up? Allan quickly realized that the Ant King was released a death-like aura. He immediately realized that the Ant King was compressing all of his remaining power to blow himself and die with Allan. As the king of the Chimera Ants, he couldn't tolerate a loss even if it costs him his life. So dying together with his enemy can be considered okay. Seeing the crazy look on the Ant King's face, Allan frowned. Although the Ant King was on his last breath, if he blows up, the energy release will be terrifying. Allan couldn't guarantee his survival from the explosion, so he couldn't afford to gamble. Allan's first thought was to run. As soon as Allan ran at his fastest speed, the Ant King blew himself up. Boom. The energy in the Ant King's body erupted in an instant. A huge mushroom cloud appeared over the valley. The Ant King blew himself up. The explosion was comparable to a nuclear bomb. Outside the valley, Netero stared solemnly at the mushroom cloud and thought, that's really a terrifying explosion. Netero was watching the battle between Allan and the Ant King, but because of the intensity and danger, he had to temporarily retreat and couldn't see everything that happened. Therefore, he didn't know who caused that explosion. Was it Allan or the Ant King? Netero thought. Netero didn't dare approach the explosion, just the shockwave generated by it was enough to destroy mountains. Even several kilometers away, he could feel the terrifying energy released in that explosion. At the palace, Kite, Gon, and Morel also heard the explosion. They all looked toward the valley dozens of kilometers away and saw the huge mushroom in the sky. It should have been dark outside, but because of the explosions, the night sky was bright. What happened over there? Morel frowned. Let's go take a look, Kite said. Afterward, Kite, Gon, Killua, and the others grouped up and went toward the valley. Poof, who was previously fighting them, also noticed the explosion from the valley. King! Poof shouted and flew toward the valley as fast as possible. After the explosion, the entire valley was devastated. The mountains and forest around were burned down, making it appear like a sea of flames. The dark sky was illuminated by the fire, painting a sunset-like picture. After half an hour, Kite, Gon, Killua, and Morel arrived outside the valley. On a big rock, everyone saw Netero. Netero was sitting on the rock watching the fire burn. Although he wanted to go in and look at the situation, the fire was too strong, so he could only wait temporarily. "Chairman," Morel shouted from below. "Oh, it's you guys." Netero jumped down from the boulder and glanced at everyone before nodding in relief. Although Killua, Shoot, and Morel were injured, these injuries weren't threatening. After a few seconds, Kite finally asked on behalf of everyone, "Chairman, what happened here? Why did the valley explode? Weren't you fighting the Ant King?" Gon then added, "What happened to Allan? Where is he?" Seeing everyone eager to know what happened here, Netero briefly recounted the story. Now, everyone understood that this explosion was caused by Allan and the Ant King's battle. Netero was forced to retreat after he lost to the Ant King and couldn't withstand the aftermath of their fight. He also mentioned that he didn't know who caused this explosion. As for whether Allan and the Ant King were alive or dead, it was unknown for now. "I'm going in." Gon stood up as he said. Having been waiting outside for a long time, he was really worried about Allan. Killua put a hand on Gon's shoulder and shook his head. "Don't, Gon, the fire is too much for anyone to enter for now." "Yes, Gon, let's wait for a bit till the fire stops," Kite also advised. "But we don't know whether Allan is alive or dead. What if he is still alive but too injured and will die if we don't help him?" Gon said with worry and anxiety. Everyone was actually worried, but the fire was really too fierce. Even from a distance, they felt the heat. Gon finally gave up his plan to rush into the fire since he understood that he won't be able to step out after going in. "Don't worry, Gon, Allan should be fine," Kite said. Kite wasn't really trying to comfort Gon since he actually believed his own words. Gon nodded and could only wait for the fire to die out before he enters the valley. Suddenly, a chill passed through the valley. The raging flame died out and the entire valley was frozen. Within 10 seconds, the flaming hell turned into a frozen hell. Seeing this, Kite, Gon, and the others opened their eyes widely in surprise. Netero said, "The flames were extinguished and this ice should be Allan's ability. It seems like he is fine." Not long after, a figure flew out of the valley. "Allan, are you okay?" Gon was the first to rush up in concern. "Well, yeah, I'm alright." Allan smiled. He glanced around and saw everyone. He nodded at them and said hello. "Allan, what happened to the Ant King?" Netero asked loudly. "What does Chairman think?" Allan's meaning was obvious. Netero said, "Well, since you're the only one coming out, it means that you already killed him." Allan nodded. "Well, yes, he is indeed dead." "How did he die?" Kite asked. "Blown," Allan replied. "Blown?" Everyone there was shocked. Allan explained, "I fought with him and seriously injured him, so, in desperation, he wanted to take me down with him and blew himself up." Thinking about the power behind the explosion, Allan felt lucky, since he, fortunately, ran fast or else. What a tragic way to die, for a powerful enemy like the Ant King to blow himself up. It was really tragic. But they were more shocked that Allan actually won against the Ant King, who even Netero could beat. This shows that Allan's power has already surpassed Chairman Netero. Since Allan dealt with the Ant King, the others were relieved. In particular, Netero praised Allan more than anyone and gave him a thumb up. He even promised Allan that he would give him the Triple Star Hunter's title after returning to the Hunter Association's headquarters. When the others heard this, they cast an envious look at Allan, well, everyone beside Gon and Killua. Because the two of them don't understand the meaning and weight behind that title. Triple Star Hunter is a symbol of the highest status that a hunter can get. Only hunters with great contributions can get this reward. Allan killed the Ant King by himself and avoided a great crisis for mankind. Besides that, Allan already killed 3 royal guards when the extermination team was formed. He even used a Senzubin to make Netero recover. The sum of those credits was more than enough. Of course, just killing the Ant King already qualified Allan for that title. After all, Netero fought against the Ant King, and even though the latter was a few months old, he was strong enough to defeat his strongest move. If they gave him some time to grow, It was hard to imagine the extent of strength he would reach. Therefore, killing the Ant King alone was enough for the Triple Star Hunter's title. As the highest person of the Hunter Association, Netero was a Triple Star Hunter himself. Amongst the whole association, only a few had this title, and right now, Allan was one of them. This meant that Allan's future status was equal to Netero's. Kite and Morel were hunters way before Allan, but even till now, they were still one-star hunters. Allan was already a double-star hunter and soon he will become a triple-star hunter. Such a fast upgrade made them feel envious and embarrassed. Allan was not too surprised or happy. He smiled and said, Now, this isn't completely over yet. Although the Ant King is dead, what happened to the royal guards? If we don't take care of them, it will bring trouble later. Kite seriously said, You killed one previously. I joined hands with Knuckle and Shoot to kill another one, and the remaining one was a bit special, so Morel, gone, Killua, and Menchi couldn't deal with him and he escaped. Shipoof, right? Allan asked. Killua nodded and replied, Yes, unfortunately, he escaped and it isn't easy to find him. Previously, Killua relied on his god speed to match Shipoof's speed. Just now, when the explosion occurred, Shipoof saw that Killua was distracted and escaped without a trace. Now, they didn't know Shipoof's location. Allan pondered for a bit. Shipoof is a royal guard. After he escaped, he probably went to find the Ant King. Let's wait for a bit here, he will definitively come. He probably will panic and come to ask about the king's whereabouts. Gon said, When he comes to ask, we will kill him, right? Yes. Allan nodded. Everyone sat on the ground waiting for Shipoof while resting. The most injured among them were Knuckle and Shoot, then comes Morel, Kite, Gon, and Menchi. Killua didn't suffer any harm, because he relied on his god speed and could dodge most attacks. However, in such battles, stamina will be greatly consumed and everyone needed some time to recover. To use god speed, Killua needed to convert Nen into an electric current, as well as charge himself with electricity beforehand. Only after a full rest would Killua be able to use god speed again, or he needed to be charged. Allan knew about this, so he directly activated his fruit ability and charged Killua with an electric current. After being charged, Killua thanked Allan for his help. Allan waved his hand and said, It's just a small matter. Killua once again entered Godspeed and said, Then, I will go into the valley and look for Shipoof. If you find him, lead him here and I will deal with him, Allan said. Okay, I'm going. In the next second, Killua disappeared. After Killua entered the valley, Netero came to Allan and asked, Allan, how is your situation? It's okay, I'm good, Allan replied. In his battle with the Ant King, Allan didn't suffer any substantial damage, only his stamina was greatly consumed. Seeing Allan's fatigue, Netero said, You look tired, so go take a rest. If Killua finds Shipoof, this old man will deal with it. After taking the Senzubin, I'm the one who is most rested and brimming with energy. Allan nodded as he was confident that even though old, Netero could deal with Shipoof with no problem. A few minutes later, a figure flashed with blue light out of the valley. After Killua came out, a black figure chased after him. Allan's eyes were sharp, he noticed Shipoof chasing after Killua. Chairman, Killua brought Shipoof here. Allan reminded Netero, who turned his head to the side. Netero nodded as he noticed Shipoof flying over as well. He immediately became vigilant. After all, the royal guards were quite strong as well. Killua quickly rushed toward everyone and finally arrived at Allan's side. After seeing who was there, Shipoof realized that Killua was leading him here. But Shipoof didn't leave, instead, he rushed forward. Because he needed to know the situation of the Ant King and his whereabouts. There are only two people who knew about the situation with the Ant King, the first was Netero, and the second was Allan. Although Shipoof had a bad feeling that the king met an accident, he didn't believe that the king would be defeated. Shipoof stopped 10 meters away from Allan and the others. He stared at Allan and asked, Where is the king? Allan shrugged and asked back, "What do you think?" Shipoof suppressed his anger and asked again, "I will ask one more time, where is the king? Answer me." Allan sneered and didn't want to play anymore, so he replied, "I'm sorry, I defeated the Ant King, and he is dead." "What did you say?" Hearing that the Ant King was killed, Shipoof's eyes widened with shock and disbelief. After a while, Shipoof couldn't believe this. "No, it's impossible. How can you kill the king? You're lying." Shipoof seemed a little crazy. "It's the truth, the king of the Chimera Ants was killed by me," Allan said coldly. "My king!" Shipoof shouted loudly toward the sky. Suddenly, a monstrous killing intent spread in all directions. Shipoof's eyes were full of anger and killing intent. Both Gon and Killua were frightened by the killing intent and their hearts trembled. Kite, Morel, and the others had serious expressions, ready to fight at any second. Only Netero and Allan were not that affected by the killing intent. Allan wasn't afraid even a little, even though Shipoof's killing intent was aimed at him. Shipoof was nothing compared to the Ant King after all. He just turned his head and glanced at Netero before saying, "I will leave him to you, Chairman." Netero nodded, "Leave it to this old man." In the next second, Netero raised his hands in a praying gesture. It seems that the Senzubin restored his leg and hands, which wasn't mentioned before. A golden light bloomed behind Netero as his 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva appeared. Gon, Killua, and everyone else there widened their eyes. It was the first time they saw Netero using the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva. Even Kite and Morel were shocked by the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva's appearance. Netero waved his palm and said, "99th hand." Countless giant hands fell on Shipoof one after the other. The speed of those attacks was close to the speed of sound. Even the Ant King couldn't dodge this move, so Shipoof could only receive a beating. Under this 99th hand, Shipoof vomited blood and was seriously injured. Currently, there is not even a single part of his body that was intact. He was severely injured and the bones on his body were completely shattered. He couldn't even fly. However, he could still stand up, which was somewhat weird. Netero couldn't help sigh at this. As expected of a royal guard, he is also a monster. After attacking him with the 99th hand, he still managed to survive. Allan said, "Chairman, you can use the 0 hand to finish him off." "Oh, okay." Just when Netero was about to use the 0 hand, Shipoof suddenly released black-purple air. "Is that a contract?" Seeing the strange black aura around Shipoof's body, Netero's expression changed. A contract is a kind of Nen usage. Nen reacts to the goal of an individual, and by placing some limitations, and vowing to abide by them, a Nen user could gain immense power. At this moment, Shipoof was staring at Allan, which means that he is after him and his vow had something to do with Allan. Netero realized this and said to Allan, "Allan, get out of here, this is troublesome." Allan noticed this as well, but he didn't flee. Instead, he said, "Chairman, let me handle this." "Allan, what are you going to do?" "The contract he made is directed at you," Netero said. The contract Poof made was very strong, even Netero was helpless feeling it. Allan replied seriously, "I will kill him before he could do anything." "Such an end of death would be difficult to deal with," Netero said. Allan reassured, "Don't worry, I have my ways. Just watch, Chairman." Netero didn't know what method Allan planned to use, but since he killed the Ant King, maybe he had a way to deal with this. In the next second, Netero noticed Allan's eyes turn scarlet with a special pattern in the middle. What kind of eyes are there? Why does it feel evil? Netero frowned when he saw Allan's Mangekyo Sharingan. Allan looked at Poof with his Mangekyo and said, "Amaterasu." A black flame suddenly appeared on Poof's body. A black flame? Netero, Kite, and everyone else was surprised by this. The black flame of Amaterasu was extremely hot and could destroy anything. It's a flame that will burn for 7 days and 7 nights. In theory, Amaterasu can burn everything, not just people. Poof tried to use his ability to split his body and get rid of the black flames, but when it split, the black flame was still stuck in each copy. A few minutes later, Poof was finally burned to ashes by the black flames of Amaterasu. Huh, it is done. Seeing Poof burned to ashes by Amaterasu, Allan sighed in relief. Everyone there couldn't believe what they saw. It took them a while to accept this. Allan, what kind of flame was that? It was powerful enough to wipe the malice and death energy from Poof. That's a special power in my Mangekyo Sharingan eyes. It's called Amaterasu, which is a black flame that can burn down everything, including on or malice. Hearing this, Netero sighed. You're really too strong that I feel scared. Fortunately, you're on our side. Allan stretched out lazily and said, Chairman, the matter is resolved, let's go back. Afterward, the group left this place and returned to the Hunter Association. After returning, Allan rested for 2 days to recover all the energy he spent. It took the other longer to recover, well except for Killua, who was like a battery. All he needed was electricity and he would be like new. A few days after their recovery, Netero summoned Allan, Kite, along with everyone else that participated in the last battle and awarded them. Gon and Killua were now single-star hunters, and Morel became a double-star hunter, along with Kite, and Menki. Knuckle and Shoot received the single-star hunter title as well. Allan was now a triple-star hunter, his status was equal to the 12 Zodiacs, and even the vice-chairman, Pariston, had to give him face now. Of course, when Allan was about to get his triple-star title, there was a vote in the 12 Zodiacs, and half of them were against Allan becoming a triple-star hunter. Though, since Netero held the most authority, he overruled their objection and gave Allan that title. After becoming a triple-star hunter, Allan received a villa from the association that can be valued at 1 billion jenny. Allan was satisfied with the villa and remembered that when he started here, it was difficult for him to even dream about getting such a high status. He worked hard and gained his power through the system. At first it wasn't much, but as he progressed, he became stronger and stronger, and finally, he stood at the top of the world. After the Chimera Ant incident, Allan and Gon returned to their peaceful lives for a while. 2 days later, in his house, Allan called out the system. Before killing the Ant King, Allan received the system's reward, the God-level treasure chest. This should be the highest treasure chest in the system. Right now, Allan was about to open this chest and see what was hidden inside. Do you want to open the God-level treasure chest? Yes. Allan instantly responded. Thing. Congratulations host for opening the God-level treasure chest and getting Dimensional Exchange System. Dimensional Exchange System? Allan was stunned. He already has a system, but he got another one? However, when he inquired, it seems that the two systems did not conflict. In simple terms, this dimensional exchange system is equivalent to a dimensional store. He could sell things and buy things from it. Allan can use his items or abilities to buy things in the store. The points were the virtual currency of the system. In this dimensional store, there were all kinds of products from all the worlds. For example, there are Sharingans, stands, Rakushiki, Haki, devil fruits, Zanpakuto, etc. But Allan had many of those abilities. So, those things didn't attract him much. When he continued to check what was inside the store, he was stunned. This is? Even the power of the laws are sold here? There is something called the space law for sale inside the store. According to the description, the space law had 4 basic abilities: teleportation, banishment, sealing, and severing. Moreover, after mastering the power of this law, new abilities will develop as you go on. In a sense, this power was equivalent to being a god. Allan naturally wanted this space law very much. After all, with his current abilities, he was nowhere near the power of a god. And if he masters the power of the space law, he would enter a new realm of power. However, the price of this law was 20 million points. Therefore, Allan must obtain those 20 million points first, and even if he sells all the items he didn't need, he would get at most 4 million points, which was far from enough. Allan didn't want to give up. After he sold the sword, Yatsufusa, for 1 million points. Now, he had 5 million points, and 15 million were left. Allan proceeded to sell his observation and armament hockey, which got him 1.5 million points. Allan sold Yoru for another million, and now he had 7.5 million points. Allan gritted his teeth and sold the Rasengan, Chidori, Bunshu Tenin, and Shinra Tensei one after the other. Those abilities added up to 3.5 million points, and now he had 11 million points. Allan then checked all the items and abilities he currently still had and found that if he sold them, he would get 10 million points. Allan had to reluctantly sell them. He enjoyed using most of those abilities, and he found it a pity to actually sell them. But he thought that as long as he obtains the Law of Space, it will be worth it. Allan's Ice Fruit and Rumble Fruit were sold at 4 million points. Allan could only bear the pain. Next was Star Platinum, which was sold at 3 million points. The Mangekyou Sharingan, which was the last ability Allan had, was sold for 3 million points. After selling those abilities and items, Allan finally gathered 21 million points. At this time, apart from the original Nen ability he had, Allan didn't have any extra ability or item. Allan abandoned all of his abilities and items for the Space Law, which was a major choice in his life. Allan directly used 20 million points and finally obtained the Space Law. The Space Law should be stronger than all the abilities and items Allan had previously. With this power, even if it's a god, I will be fearless. Allan clenched his fists and looked at the sky. After getting the Space Law, Allan entered seclusion. Although he had this power now, he wasn't able to control it, so it took practice. 10 days later, Allan finally ended his seclusion. Although he wasn't proficient yet, he can use the Space Law at its basic level. For example, he can teleport. The teleport using the Law of Space was a genuine teleport. It's not a fast movement, but actually going from point A to point B instantly. At this moment, he received a notice from Netero inviting him to the association. Now, as a triple-star hunter, Allan was eligible to attend the important discussions held in the association. After receiving the notice, Allan decided to use the Space Law to teleport to the association. Allan's house was located in the center of the city, and about a few hundred kilometers away from the association. It takes 2 hours by car and 1 hour by aircraft to reach there. Using the Law of Space, Allan could use short-distance teleportation. His current limit was teleporting a kilometer at a time, so after a few jumps, Allan was already at the association. It took only 100 seconds, which was 1 minute and 40 seconds to travel a few hundred kilometers. In Netero's office, the latter looked at Allan before saying, "Well, I haven't seen you for a while and you seem to have changed." Allan was startled. Netero's eyes were sharp. He smiled and asked, "What change did the chairman notice?" Netero replied, "I don't know exactly, but I feel like you are more powerful, or mysterious. I can't even see through you anymore." Allan smiled, "Thanks for the praise, Chairman. I just gained a new ability. However, for this reason, I also abandoned all of my previous powers. It can be said that now, I entered a brand new realm. I will let you see what I mean sometime later, Chairman." "Haha, I look forward to it," Netero said. After exchanging a few words, Allan finally asked, "Chairman, what is it that required my presence this time?" Netero said, "This old man is going to retire. I wanted to ask your opinion." Allan wasn't surprised by this decision. "Well, if you want to retire, of course, there shouldn't be a problem, Chairman." "So, who do you think should be elected as the new chairman?" Netero asked. Allan thought for a while before he replied, "I'm not familiar with my colleagues in the association, but if you ask me to recommend someone, it should be one from the 12 zodiacs." Netero nodded. This old thinks so as well. Those who take the chairman's position must have knowledge about the association. They also need to be strong enough. The 12 zodiacs are indeed the most suitable candidates. So which one of the 12 does chairman think is most suitable? Allan asked. "Well, I have two candidates in mind, Netero replied. Oh? Can you tell me who they are? Allan asked curiously. Netero replied, the first one is Pariston. In addition to being one of the 12 zodiacs, he is also the vice-chairman, and knows almost everything in the association. The second one is Cheeto Yorkshire. She is strong and recognized in the association, her reputation is high amongst her peers. She is also one of the few triple-star hunters. I have no doubt that she has the qualification to be the next chairman. Allan nodded at the candidates that Netero chose and said, Pariston and Ms. Cheeto Yorkshire are indeed the best candidates, they have the ability to be in that position, but... But what? Netero asked. I think there is someone else that can be the chairman, Allan said. You mean that Jing Freak's guy? Netero asked. Yes, it's Gon's father. Although I haven't met him yet, they say that he is a great hunter, Allan said. Netero said, it's undeniable that this guy is indeed a very good hunter. No, I should say he is a genius. At a young age, he is a very powerful Nen user. He also made a lot of contributions to the association and qualifies for the position, but... But what? But that guy won't become the chairman. In other words, Jing himself doesn't want to be the chairman, he doesn't like to be restrained? Restrained? Haha, this word is used well. That's right, Jing is a person who yearns for freedom and adventure. He has no interest in becoming the chairman and managing the association. Therefore, it's impossible for him to become the chairman. Haha, in that case, you can only choose from Pariston and Ms. Cheeto Yorkshire, Allan said. Well, if I pick from those two, I'm afraid the other members of the 12 zodiacs will be unhappy. I think I should hold a fair election, Netero said. Election? Netero replied, I will let the members of the association vote for the 12 zodiacs. All 12 of them will be candidates for the position, and whoever gets more votes will be the chairman. What do you think? Well, that's a good idea, I think it will work. Allan nodded. He was also interested in electing the new chairman. A week later, Netero called the 12 zodiacs to hold a meeting. In a meeting room inside the association's headquarters, the 12 zodiacs along with Netero sat down. The 12 zodiacs are usually busy, so, gathering the 12 at the same time is rare. It's not easy to invite them all at the same time. But they didn't refuse this gathering after Netero invited them, which shows Netero's weight in their hearts. Pariston Hill, the rat. Myziastum Nana, the ox. Kanzai, the tiger. Pion, the rabbit. Badabai Gigante, the dragon. Gel, the snake. Sakokobayakawa, the horse. Ginta, the sheep. Seiyu, the monkey. Cluck, the chicken. Cheeto Yorkshire, the dog. Jing Freaks, the boar. In addition to them, Allan was also invited to this meeting. Right now, he was sitting next to Netero. Originally, Allan didn't want to join the fun, but Netero said all the 12 zodiacs are coming, so he wanted to see them. The members of the 12 zodiacs weren't unfamiliar with Allan, after all, Allan was well known now. Besides, he is a triple-star hunter and deserved to be here with them. But there are several people who met Allan for the first time here. One of them was Jing Freaks. Jing at this moment looked at Allan a few times before he said, I didn't expect you to be so young. You really are good. You're also younger than I thought. I thought you'd be an old man already, Allan said casually. I heard that you saved Kite when he was fighting the Chimera ants. Thank you. Jing thanked Allan. You only care about Kite, your disciple? What about Gon, your son? Have you met him? He really wanted to meet you. Allan's words caught the attention of all the others there. Their eyes turned to Jing as they waited for the show. Jing scratched his head and said, I really haven't met Gon yet, but I heard that he is fine from Kite. You also took care of him, thank you. Allan replied, I don't need any useless thank you. Since you're Gon's father, you should meet him. Jing nodded. Besides coming to this meeting, I wanted to look for Gon, that's why I'm here. Fine then, Allan said. If Jing refused to meet Gon, Allan would be greatly disappointed in him. But the protagonist of this meeting was Netero, so he shouldn't show off. Netero went straight toward the main topic. Everyone, I plan to retire. The 12 Zodiacs already expected this and weren't surprised. After all, Netero was the chairman of the association for decades and he was already quite old. Chairman, are you really planning to retire? Asked Cheetle. Well, I already decided, Netero said. He already told Allan before, and this time, he was only informing them. Chairman, who are you going to appoint as the next chairman? Asked Myziastum Nana. The candidate for this position has to be selected from you 12, this is why I asked you to come, Netero explained. Chairman, you are thinking too highly of us. The 12 Zodiacs looked at each other and fell into deep thoughts. After all, the position of the chairman was not really simple. The responsibility and workload are too great and even as senior hunters, they aren't fully confident to take this position. Netero said, the next chairman will be decided by an election. This particular election will be redone if the voting rate is less than 95%. The election will be repeated if the candidate with the most votes has not achieved the majority of votes in the first election. It is mandatory that all hunters write their names, or else all nameless votes will be null and void. The member with the highest number of votes, in the end, will take the position of chairman of the association. The 12 Zodiacs felt the pressure but none of them refused. The atmosphere inside the room became gloomy, as some members disliked each other. Puristan knew that according to normal procedure, the vice chairman should be the one to take over the chairman's position, but in this case, the other Zodiacs won't agree. Because each of them doubted Puristan more or less. It's because of this that Netero proposed the election. In this way, it would be fair. At this time, the vice chairman suddenly said, Chairman, why don't you add another candidate? Who do you want to add? Netero asked. It's the one next to you, Puristan said as he looked at Allan. Allan felt as if he was targeted for no apparent reason. Netero turned his head and asked, Allan, what do you think? Allan didn't expect Puristan to want him to join the election, but he immediately shook his head. I'm sorry, I have no interest in being the chairman of the Hunter Association. I appreciate your kindness, Vice Chairman Puristan. Puristan said, well, that's a pity, otherwise, you might become the youngest new chairman in the history of the association. Allan shrugged. After all, he is freer now and can do whatever he wanted.